If you don't think you can accomplish big things, look at this woman training 2+ years just to stand up and walk across the finish line. And she did. And every step, there's thousands of people lining this finish line. There's bleachers, grandstands. Every step, it seemed like it got louder and louder and louder for her until we get to the finish line to a roar like I've never heard in my life, Matt. And I've been blessed to do a lot of fun things myself, endurance races, 100-mile ultra marathons, Ironman. I've never had a feeling like this when it wasn't about me. It's fully about this woman who just worked for 2+ years to walk across the finish line.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Eternal Optimist podcast. I am your host, Matt Drinkhahn, and today we have on the show Mr. Matt Scoletti. Not only is this name fun to say, Scoletti, not only is it fun to say, we've had a fun conversation so far. Matt has done, we're gonna dive deep into this today because I'm just fascinated, a little bit envious of some of the things that he has knowingly and intentionally signed up to do in his life. And I'll just tease you with this, is that he has done something called the 5X Ironman, which means a 12-mile swim, 560-mile bike. What the freaking heck? That's like longer. That's from my house in Charlotte to Pennsylvania. That's to my in-law. That's my 11-hour drive. He did that. And a 131-mile run. Now, am I reading this right, Matt? 12-mile swim, 560-mile bike, and then 131-mile run. Is that real, or is that just like play? Did you just make that up, fake that to get on the show? Because that just sounds insane.
No, it's real, and I'll share the story that it took me a couple times to complete that. But yeah, it's real.
Wow. Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are in the presence of someone who's done that insanely crazy, awesome, amazing thing. And Matt's going to, no pressure, Matt, but he's going to inspire us today. And let's just start things off and say, hey, welcome to the show, Matt. How are you today, sir?
I am doing great, Matt. The greatest names ever right there. I'm excited that I will never forget your name. And thanks for having me on. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Oh, heck yeah. Let's dive in then. Let's share with the audience for context. Who is Matt Scoletti?
I feel like this is the hardest question ever, and I love that you throw it at me right out of the gate. So Matt Scoletti is 41 years old, from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, now residing in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And I would say I love the movie Frozen. I'm a big Disney fan. I'm a big hip-hop music fan. I feel like resiliency has been a theme that has been in my life throughout the 41 years. And I'll give you the quick who Matt Scoletti is at a young age. Basketball player. I loved the sport, was obsessed. Wasn't that great, but obsessed with it. Played all through high school, thought I could play in college, realized I'm not 6'7" like you. I'm 5'7", 5'8" maybe. And tried to walk on to University of Richmond basketball team, got humbled quickly and threw myself basically into partying and drinking. And it led down a pretty steady decline for 15 years until I turned the corner to be able to do some of the fun stuff that you just talked about. So there's a little backdrop, but I think resiliency and probably faith in myself and a higher power helped get me back on track.
Whew. Okay. Well, you said you don't want to know the questions in advance. So let me give you another one that might be easy. What is the hardest thing that you've ever had to endure and overcome in your life that you can share with us today, Matt?
Yeah, I just got goosebumps when you said that, and I just alluded to it. It's definitely overcoming an alcohol addiction that I did not see coming. I got involved with drinking in college, as I said. 4 years, it kept getting worse and worse and worse. By senior year, my claim to fame, as embarrassing as this is, was I would split a case of beer with a friend of mine for days on end, and we would drink 15 beers a day for months. And I told myself I'd get a job and then I would get into the real world and that would all change.
Yes.
It didn't. It wasn't that easy. It was not that easy. It was an addiction. Like, it was a true addiction. And I also took a job selling spring break travel packages in Boston, which was not the greatest shift into a professional career for somebody struggling with alcohol. It started out as something I enjoyed doing, and it became something that I needed to do to feel like I could be myself. And that's truly where I was mentally, was this is just something that I have to do to be social, to give speeches. I used to read in church and I would drink before I read in church because I didn't have the confidence sober to do it. And one of the toughest moments was in 2011. So this is like 10 years into it. And I think I came to the realization that I'm in control of the alcohol consumption. I was really good. I call it the blunder of blame. I would blame everybody on my drinking. I'd blame my friends. Well, I chose my friends. I would blame God. I would blame my family. I would blame coworkers. Whoever I could put the blame on that wasn't myself is who got it. And it wasn't until that first moment in 2011, I realized, holy crap, like it's me, like it's on me. And I didn't even get it then. I'll share one last story about this where I just shared this recently, probably like a year ago, even though this happened in 2015. I was selected to be on American Ninja Warrior, which was a dream of mine. They recorded it in Pittsburgh. For those that don't know, they recorded overnight. Like if you look at the show, it's always dark out. So I think I ran the course at like 1:15 in the morning. It was literally a dream of mine. And I get up there, I do the course. They promote me on the show when it comes out as this guy who overcame an alcohol addiction to become this fitness champion, which was true, only I hadn't fully overcome it. And I was actually drunk on the show. I was drinking plain bottles of liquor before I went out and competed on the show because I didn't have the confidence on that big of a stage to be there mentally and be able to compose myself. So that was another moment where now it's like millions of people are seeing the show. I'm the first guy they feature. It's like a 2.5-minute segment on overcoming an alcohol addiction. And I just lied to the whole world. And so it took until 2016, took my family to a country concert that was supposed to be a big celebration just because I love my parents. I got absolutely hammered. And really, it took the moment where the morning after this concert, I was too drunk to drive home, so I stayed at my parents' house. I saw the look on my dad's face when I walked in the kitchen and my head was pounding and I embarrassed myself at this concert. And it was now at the point where not only was I letting myself down, I was letting down my family, my dad, who's my idol, my mom, and my family name. So that was it. Like
that was it. That was the turning point.
That was it. Yeah.
Was it in that moment? Because when you said that, my head went down, and I feel the moment that I had to make a decision about something in my life too, and I felt ashamed in front of my dad, and that was a big transforming point for me. So this is the moment, but your head's pounding and you're hungover. So are you able to make any rational conclusions in this moment, or did you like intentionally notice in this moment that I can't let this happen anymore? I let him down anymore. So talk more about that day, please.
Yes. I appreciate you asking. And that's exactly what it was. I woke up, my head pounding, which happened, thousands of times probably before that. But I walked in. So it's actually kind of cool. And I appreciate you asking me this because it's taking me back to that moment that was powerful. I walked into their living room and they have mirrors on the one side of the wall. And I could see the first thing I saw was a look in my dad's eye. And he looked at me and just sort of put his head down. And I knew what that meant, him being my father. Like I've seen that look before. It's just like ultimate disappointment in actions that I've done. And then after that, I look and there's the mirror in their living room and I see myself and I just look like I was 20 years older than I was. I looked like I was unmotivated and lazy. And I'd been there before. That was the other thing. I had this moment 5 years prior that apparently wasn't enough. And it took that second time. And yes, Matt, to your point, I said in that moment, I refuse to put myself anywhere close to a situation where this may happen again. I have a very addictive personality. I won't have one because that can lead to 7 or 17. And that was it. July of 2016 was the last time I've touched alcohol. And I love to say that I'm done for good. It is a day by day thing where when curveballs happen, it's still, you think about it, but then just come up with other ways to cope with it.
Okay. So that was the day. That was indeed the day. That was enough. It took that moment where something touched you. And I would say that for me, it was very similar. Not for alcohol, but for smoking. And I say this because I had picked up a little cigarette smoking, a little habit, which my dad always says, don't ever do this. All right. So of course, I did it when I was in college, my junior year at a fraternity party, and then silently kind of stole away at night and do it in my dorm room. And before you know it, I'm doing it at nights, every night. And I'm smoking cigarettes. So how I stopped is when my kids were born, I'm like, nope, not anymore. Because I said that I never wanted to see my dad or mom ever smoke again. And mom quit, but dad didn't. And he died. He was smoking. So I kind of maybe blame a little bit of that challenge on, man, if he wouldn't have smoked. So yeah, for me, it was I stopped smoking because of the kids. For you, it was you stopped drinking because you felt that you had enough by the look in your dad's eye. So thanks for sharing.
Yeah, thanks for asking. Yeah.
I'll take you back to 2011. You mentioned the blender of blame. And from someone who was in that place of blaming outside things. I know you're seasoned in your reading, so I'm going to kind of quote Jocko here at Extreme Ownership and kind of owning everything around how have I contributed to this and what do I need to do forward and own my part moving forward. For someone who subscribes to that, I know you do now. For someone who subscribed to this, own everything about myself, just I have to take responsibility. It appeared as though you were blaming some other things at that time. And I would always ask someone, I mean, have you considered that it's actually not their fault that you're doing this? Have you actually considered owning yourself and owning your own actions? And I always get a stink eye at that. I always get a look like I'm judgmental. So were there people in your life at that time in 2011 when you may have been blaming external things? Were there people that were trying to get through and share this with you that you need to own your own responsibility, like a dad maybe or someone? And how did you respond to that?
Well, that's a great question, Matt. And actually, it leads to probably one of the scariest things of the whole story, which is nobody had any idea what I was going through. And I was really good at hiding the drinking. And it was one of those where it would look like it was a party somewhere at a house. I would have one drink, but it had 6 shots in it. And then I would just drink it slow throughout the course of the night. Or I would disappear and drink by myself. And then I'm already 7 or 8 deep, and then I come back and I'm just sipping one beer. So I did not have anybody, but it was just because it was such a secretive battle within myself that it wasn't until I actually put a book out talking about it where I showed my family, I need to tell you that I'm going to put this book out and it's a tell-all of what I've been through myself. And so when people say to me, hey, Matt, that's awesome that you overcame this alcohol addiction by yourself. I mean, first off, I don't think it was by myself. And secondly, I don't encourage that at all. I think that was not smart of me to attempt to attack this on my own. And I should have gotten help. Whereas maybe 2011 would have been the last time I drank and it wouldn't have taken 5 more years. But yeah, I had one person at a church that I embarrassed myself at a charity function that they had. And she realized I was just too drunk that night, but she didn't know there was a problem there. But I entered the wrong church. I actually went into the wrong building for this charity event because I was stumbling my way down the street. And she wouldn't let me into the charity event. She said, Matt, you're way too drunk. You're going to embarrass yourself. You need to leave right now. And I called her the next day and I said, thank you. Like that could have been really, really bad. So yeah, nobody really knew what was going on. It was more of a battle inside of myself. And I wish I would have shared it because I probably could have got help quicker.
I'd say before we move on to like the next chapter of the story, kind of the things that you've risen to or challenged yourself with post July 2016, is there anything else you'd like to share from those years? Any other story or any other words of inspiration to anyone out there who might be struggling with it now?
From 2011 to 2016, yeah, there's one of the things I speak about all the time is I think we are the general of our army, and the army is who you are around every day of your life. And what I realized it in 2011, not fully because I did it again. I surrounded myself with people who drank. And as a result, I met more people who drank alcohol. And it wasn't until 2011 and then again in 2016, I often say Army determines apex. Army determines how high or how low you go. And you're the general. You get to decide who you spend your time with. So I would encourage anybody, I do this all the time, look at the last 5 people or 10 people you've had a text conversation with or phone calls with. How does it end? Are you left uplifted, excited, encouraged, ready to conquer the day? or are you left with gossip and feeling defeated and down and sad? And I'm not saying you need to be there for friends that are going through tough times, but if it's somebody that's always pulling you down, it may be time to cut out the fun suckers of your life. And that was a huge change. I left my 4 best friends in 2011, 2012, and great people. They just love to party, and I had to get out of that world. So Army Determines Apex is something I love talking about, and I think it changed my life, changing the people that I got around.
When did that first start to come into focus for you, this concept of Army Determines Apex?
It came to mind in 2011 because I realized I had to make changes. I didn't know I would lose all my friends. I say friends, it was more like drinking buddies. And then it wasn't fully until probably later on, like 2021, when I got much more into speaking and race emceeing and endurance running. And I thought 100-mile ultra marathon is like, what? That doesn't even seem like, how's that even possible? And then you meet people that have done it and they talk about it like it's a 5-mile run. And it's like, okay, now it's no big deal because you're around people. I know you've probably read this book a couple times, Atomic Habits by James Clear. I love, he says, and I'm going to butcher it, but get in a group where your desired behavior is their normal behavior. So you get into these groups where 100-mile ultra marathoners, that's their normal behavior. And it was my desired behavior because I could run 10, 20 miles, but not 100. So I think it really didn't click until probably 2021, once I really got into ultra endurance running and realized that there's really no limits on this thing called life.
And I like that. Get in a group where your desired behavior is their normal behavior, from Atomic Habits, Army Determines Apex. Listeners, I encourage you to take those thoughts and put them into your journal and ask, what does that mean to you? Because this is good stuff. Matt, thanks for sharing kind of the buildup here and the challenges that you were facing pre-July 2016. Let's take us forward past that. Where are you pouring your passion, your energy into now?
I am pouring my passion and energy into, for a while, it was pushing myself to the limit and then pushing it beyond. And as far as I could get myself to go was what I was obsessed with. And I'm happy to share any of those stories. The 5X Ironman event was probably 4 or 5 months ago now. That was like post 2016 up until 2024. I just wanted to see how far my mind, body, soul, spirit could go. 2025, I am 100% focused on, like, I come up with a word or phrase every year that defines the year. And 2025 is give to live. That's the phrase. And it's about giving back and what can I do for other people versus focusing on myself and seeing how far I can go. So how much can I pour into my wife, my family, my friends? How much more value can I give when I'm on a stage and trying to inspire an audience to take action? And it's about them. It's not about me and my stories. It's about what do they need to hear in this moment that could help them make a change in their life that lasts forever. So that's the main focus. And I would imagine it's not just 2025. It will be many years going on. I want to use my setbacks and challenges to help others not go to the depths of that darkness where they don't have to get that bad before they make a change.
I love that you do the word for the year concept. I like that one as well. And we were talking earlier about the Surrender Experiment, the book by Michael Singer. Surrender was the word for my wife in 2023. And that led us to the Surrender Experiment. My word this year is curious. Yours is give to live. So I wonder, how do you know that you're living up to that standard, give to live, or not? If you're measuring it in some way, or just how do you think about that over the course of a day, a week, this year?
That's a great question, Matt, because I am very hard on myself and I typically want to give more. And even if I feel like I gave a lot that day, I always go to bed and just think, could I done a little bit more today? And maybe that motivates me to do more the next day. But I think for me, it starts with my love, which is endurance racing, the fitness community. And I'll give you an example. So this past actually just last month, I pushed a woman who I've become friends with her and her family now for years. It's a foundation called the Cow Peace Foundation. And her name's Natalie. She has cerebral palsy and she's not very mobile. She's in a wheelchair, but she is hilarious and vocal. And we've built up quite a relationship over the last few years. Her whole goal for like decade, I think, was to do the Disney World Dopey Challenge, which is a 5K Thursday, 10K Friday, half marathon Saturday, full marathon Sunday. And she wanted me to push her. And I just got goosebumps saying that, because what an honor to be the one to help achieve this goal. And so Give to Live, this was a perfect alignment to what I was trying to do. And I'll share the story real quick, because to me, it's the ultimate story of overcoming a setback. So we did a 5K a couple years ago, and she's not able to physically get out of the chair, but she can get through the 5K, even though it's bumpy. I'm a horrible driver, Matt, so that doesn't help either as I weave around with the wheelchair and have fun with it. But also it's taxing on her body. So she didn't know 4 events in a row in Disney. You're waking up at 2 a.m. The races start at 4:30. It's wild experience. And so we get through the first 3 events, and it's the marathon day, which clearly is the longest, most grueling one. As we're running, and a buddy of mine, Colin, is pushing her with me. So we switch off every mile. He'll push a mile, I'll push a mile, and we're running this marathon. So we get to the finish line and we ask her, like, how are you feeling? And she had been training for 2 years to physically stand up. And her whole thing was she wanted to walk across the finish line versus have us push her. She'd never done this before. I could get emotional just talking about it. She had never done it before. She wanted to walk across the Disney World full marathon finish line. And we pull the chair off to the side, to the left, about 50 feet. It wasn't that close. Like, she had to walk quite a ways because she wanted that. And we unstrap her from the wheelchair. And as we're unstrapping her and she starts to lift herself up, the race announcer sees what's going on and runs over, and she's on the mic and she said, "Oh my goodness, we have a woman here. She's had cerebral palsy. Her name is Natalie. She's 31 years old. If you don't think you can accomplish big things, look at this woman training 2+ years just to stand up and walk across the finish line." And she did. And every step, there's thousands of people lining this finish line. There's bleachers, grandstands. Every step, it seemed like it got louder and louder and louder for her until we get to the finish line, to a roar like I've never heard in my life, Matt. And I've been blessed to do a lot of fun things myself, endurance races, 100-mile ultra marathons, Ironman. I've never had a feeling like this when it wasn't about me. It's fully about this woman who just worked for 2+ years to walk across the finish line. And as a result, I have a speech that I give, and it's called Challenges Build Champions. And her story is the main story, because she turned what could have been an ultimate challenge and setback into a success story. And to me, a heroic champion that this woman Natalie is. So Give to Live, that's something that I will never forget.
What was that like for you? I mean, you told the story a little bit, but I'd love to kind of just zoom in here. You're standing there. You and your running mate partner are helping Natalie get up. She's up. She starts to walk. Take us forward frame by frame from there. Like, what was happening? Was your adrenaline like jacked? Were you crying? I mean, what was going on right there in your world, in your lens?
So yeah, I love that you want me to zoom in on these memories, Matt. I think that's such a great question. First off, I didn't know if she was going to be able to do it. We talked about it, but I didn't know if she was going to be able to do it, B, if Disney would even let it happen. I thought they may come over and say, you need to push her across. So we didn't know that the race announcer was going to get behind this story and make it even bigger than it was and tell the whole audience. So as soon as she was able to get up, I absolutely started tearing up immediately, because I realized we're not stopping now until she gets across this finish line. And I just looked at her and said, Natalie, are you ready? Are you ready to do this? Like, you've been training for 2+ years. And there's pictures where her smile, I mean, it's just, you can tell the euphoria that she is going through, and just proving to herself and so many other people watching this that we're capable of more. And as we walked and the race announcer was making a bigger deal out of it, my tears continued to flow. And I was struggling to talk. The adrenaline was pumping where she had one arm around me, one arm around Colin, my buddy. And we were all sort of in awe that this was happening, where all eyes were on her. And to me, as we're taking the steps and I'm crying more and more, I'm thinking not only what she did to get to this moment, but I couldn't help but think the people in the audience that thought they had some sort of limiting belief in their head watching this, their life could be changed forever. Because mine was, and I was right there. And I think people that are seeing this, and how could you not, if you're capable, go sign up for your first 5K or start a business you didn't think you could start, or sign up for a speech you didn't think you could give. You're watching a miracle and a heroic experience happen. So all of that was going on in my head, while I'm also thinking, don't let go, like don't celebrate too much where your hands are up and then Natalie falls down or something. So all of that's going on in my head, but it was the most present I've probably been in a moment where it was so perfect that it's hard to explain.
Thank you. That was awesome. Awesome to hear. Let's keep moving forward. I'm curious just because it sounds absolutely banana bonkers to me that someone would do an Ironman, 5X Ironman at those distances. Because my self-limiting belief was after the zipline accident, after I fell and became disabled in a wheelchair and all that, my self-limiting belief was I don't know if I can finish a marathon. And so I was able to do that, just barely finish the marathon.
You're unbelievable. That's an amazing story, my friend.
Thank you. And how it relates to your story is that I'm sitting here thinking about 12-mile swim, 560-mile bike, and 131-mile run. I'm thinking to myself right here, what's the hardest of those three? The swimming, obviously, is the hardest of the three, obviously. That I've never biked more than about 50 miles in one sitting. So that's 10 times longer I've ever biked. 131 miles is literally almost 5 times the distance of, 5 times the distance I've ever run. 12-mile swim is 6 times the longest swim I've ever done. And you did all that together back to back. So do you have a screw loose in there, Matt? or what would cause someone to train for that and then see it through and actually just talk about that? I'm trying to build it up, make it funny, but man, that is just so inspiring to me. Talk about that journey of the first day that came in your mind of doing this 5X Ironman. What was the thought? And then expand on it from there, please.
No, the answer is yes. I have probably multiple screws loose, Matt. Absolutely, for sure. And just to preface it with that, yes, that's true. And secondly, I think it's just this obsession with growth and wanting to know how far us and myself and the mind can go. And I know it sounds like a lot of people will say, like, well, that's such a physical feat, which yeah, it is. But to me, it's the mindset. It's like, how do you keep your mind from going insane from moving your body for 4+ days in a row in these different disciplines? And for me, it was a 100-mile ultra marathon run where I completed a couple of them. And it's very painful and you question yourself and you wonder, can you do it? You think, should I quit at mile 75? And to me, it's like almost all of life is encapsulated in a 100-mile ultra run, where it's these ups, downs, euphoria could be right before down in the dumps could happen right after that. So to go through all of these different, and again, I think challenges build champions, and to go through these different challenges, it was always like, what's next? So I met somebody who said that there's an event. I'd done my first Ironman in 2021, a couple 100-mile ultra runs in 2021 and 2022. And he said, there's events where you can go multiple Ironman distances, and it's called an Anvil. ANVIL is the company. Mammoth Endurance runs it. And I called up the race director and I said, I've done these 100-mile ultras. Like, I want to do one of your events. So they had a 2X, 3, 4, and 5X. And just being that I have a couple screws loose, I'm like, I want to do the 5X. Like, I want to do as far as you have. And he's like, you probably want to do like 2 first since you've done 1. His name's Craig. And I'm like, Craig, I want to do 5. Like, put me all the way out there. So this is in 2023 in Virginia. I give it a shot. And I trained the whole year a year plus for this event. And I get the 12-mile swim, I get under my belt, I get on the bike, and I bike overnight the first night into the second day, into the second night. And I'm like 225 miles in, and my left calf is really, really bothering me. I'd never had this problem before. And about 250 miles in, I end up tearing my left calf on a horrible dismount on the bike. And I could hear it pop and rip. And I saw the guy, the medic over there. He's like, yeah, you did some major damage here. So stubborn me, I continued to bike on my other foot. Like I let my left foot dangle there and I'm like cycling on my right foot. So I get to 450 miles in on the bike and I kind of was just like
200 miles on one leg because there's mile 250. So you did 200 miles on one leg.
Yeah,
okay.
I was so frustrated that I knew I couldn't run. I'm like, I just want to see how far I can go on my right foot and right leg because I'm stubborn and I wanted to see what would happen. So long story short, at 450 miles, I just said, I know I can't run. I'm exhausted. I can't walk at all. My left calf is destroyed. So I bowed out. I DNF'd, which means did not finish my only event ever. And all that did was drive me more to be like, I'm coming back and I will finish this event. So this past September, it was in Wisconsin and it was an obsession. I mean, I went so hard in the training that it was just something where it didn't matter what I had to do. I was going to complete this event. And I get there and I'm just very blessed that you asked what the hardest part was. The bike for me was the hardest, even though that's technically my second best discipline. I'm not a great swimmer, so I just kind of make my way through that.
Okay.
I think it took me 8 hours. It's like 48 loops in this lake that you just continuously do for 8 hours. And then you hop. Yeah, it's a grind. It is a grind. And then the bike is only 5 miles. I think it's 2.5 miles out, 2.5 miles back. So you're doing this like 110 times or something like that, something crazy. Woo. And what happened was my brain, I never completed the bike. So as soon as I hit mile 450, the pain that I was in many different areas. And when you're sitting on a bike that long, it's impossible to keep yourself even half comfortable. It was getting over that 450th mile, realizing my body is in pain, but I'm not injured. And once I completed the bike, running's my best discipline of the three. It was almost like I did hit a euphoria state of I can run, like I will run until I run to the finish line. And I was very lucky that it all worked out. So I ended up going through this. I had you have a slow pace at that point. You're doing, 14, 15 minute miles, just trying to get through it. And at mile 90, I hit, and I'll share this quick story. I didn't expect this because it's a 131 mile run. You've already done all these other miles. Most of the bodies are just destroyed at this point. And I hit a point where I actually talked to somebody and I was power hiking at this point. And this guy said to me, I consider myself a part of my identity, which I think is interesting in itself. How do we identify ourselves? I'm an ultra runner. I believe I'm an ultra runner. And this guy said to me, and not in a mean way, he was just hey, you can just turn into an ultra walker. And that's all I needed to hear. And I thought, I'm not an ultra walker. I'm an ultra runner. So from mile 90, I was in last place. There was only 6 of us out there and I was in 6th. And from mile 90 to 115, I took myself up to 3rd place and I just ran. I just ran the fastest segment that any of the athletes ran over the course of that. It was almost a marathon. It was 23, 24 miles, but it was all mindset. That's all it was. It was one comment this guy made. And I thought, I don't identify with that. That's not who I am. And it just flipped this switch that turned me into something that it's hard to explain. So I was very lucky. I got it done the second time, and they actually have a DECA, a 10X one that I absolutely have no desire to do, Matt. So I will not be doing that.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I'm never going to ask you about the insanity that goes into a 10X. 5X is enough. At least that's how my limited thinking tells me today. But it's a super cool story. Wow. So Anvil, it's not the Ironman, it's the Anvil. Or is that the name of the company? That's what it's called, doing the Anvil.
Yeah, Mammoth Endurance Anvil. And just the experience I learned, Matt, and see how you resonate with this, is this idea of failure is what's really hit home with me. And I think I often make this point when I'm speaking that failure is fiction. I think when you go into the fiction section of a bookstore, books on failure should be there, because what is it? To me, it's like, did I fail the first time I attempted it? No, that was just part of the story to lead to the redemption of success. So I think the only true failure is just giving up fully on whatever the goal is that you're going after. And I don't believe the word even exists. I think I think Kobe Bryant said, it's just an outcome that we don't want. That's what failure is. And you can learn from it. So I really learned that I think I've always been scared to not finish an event, and going through that, it almost like was a big weight off of me. Like, okay, you didn't finish one now. It's not that big of a deal. You tore your calf muscle. Like, what's next? Like, come up with the next goal. So I think this fear of failure is in my head now. It's such crap, and I don't even think it exists anymore, that I love just getting that out of my vocabulary.
And you've given us so many good quotes, so many good ideas. This has been outstanding. Matt, where is it that we can go if we want to follow you, connect with you, learn with you? Like, where do we find you out there in the world, on the internet, or just wherever? Where do we find you?
Yeah, no, just my name, Matt Scoletti. I'm very active on Instagram. I have a website that's just my name, mattscoletti.com. I love coming into schools, organizations, businesses, and talking about this idea of a blueprint of how you can turn challenges into becoming a champion. And I do a ton of race emceeing and event emceeing as well. I just love that space and just pouring into other people. And I can tell, Matt, you're so good at this, where I would often speak on stage and I would want to look good. And one of my mentors said to me, he even asked me, he's like, do you want to look good on stage? And I was like, yeah, of course I do. And he goes, that's your problem. Like, it's not about you. It's about what you can give to the audience. And it totally shifted all of my speaking. It completely shifted it. So yeah, I love getting out there and speaking. Anybody can look me up, hit me up with an email, message, whatever. And I love talking about turning setbacks into the ultimate comebacks and championship mentality.
It's about what you give the audience. This is a professional speaker, ladies and gentlemen, talking about it's all not about how you look. It's about what you give the audience. So that has been great because you're a lifelong learner and you've got behind you a very extensive bookshelf, which I'd love to go deep with the audience in. I'm gonna give you the next easy question. I'd like for you to turn to your bookshelf and pick out 3 books that you can show us that have had an impact in your life that you would recommend to our audience. And if you're watching on YouTube, you got to see this shelf. We can see at least 4 of his shelves here. I can see some of the books. I can't see them all that clear, but I can see some of them. And I know that, Paulo Coelho was in there with The Alchemist. You showed that one to me earlier. That's a great one. What do you have here?
All right. I love this. I'm sure you and I could do a podcast for forever about this. I'll give you 2 that maybe a lot of people have heard, and maybe I'll throw one out that you haven't. I know you and I talked briefly about this beforehand. I have to throw out The Untethered Soul. To me, is a book that I have reread 15 to 20 times. I am absolutely obsessed with this book, and it just gets you in. It's like spiritual meets personal growth meets. I just go straight to chapter 17. I won't give it away, but that's a chapter that changed my life in itself. And it just shows you that at any point, this thing called life, we don't know how long we're going to be here for. And to just act like every day, every conversation, every podcast you're on, if it's the last one, how do you want to show up? And that's one of the big takeaways I take from The Untethered Soul. So I cannot recommend that enough. The classic, as you said, The Alchemist was one. You just hear that. I heard it so often from successful people, this book, and I just had to read it. And coming up with this idea of your personal legend and just the setbacks that this guy goes through, the horrible setbacks, to ultimately go after what he calls the personal legend is absolutely incredible. And then I'll hit you with one. Hopefully you haven't heard of this one before. It's called Ikigai. I don't know if you've ever heard of this book. It's one of my favorites. There's actually been a couple like different spin-offs and journals from it. And it's called The Japanese Secret to a Long and Happy Life. And basically, I'll give you the very, very brief summary. Ikigai is basically the combination of what you love, what you're good at, what you can be paid for, and what the world needs. And it combines all 4 of those, and that is Ikigai. And the book is so good because they talk about food and how the people that have lived the longest, how do they eat? What are their habits? One of the things he says is they never retire. They never fully retire. They're always adding value to other people, and they're working because that gives us a purpose. So Ikigai hopefully is one your audience has not heard of before. It was recommended to me years ago, and I love that book.
This is fantastic. I've never actually seen it. I've heard of it. I've never tried pronouncing it, but now I've seen it, and it sounds fascinating. The intersection of what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you can, I think we said what you can get paid for. So put all that together, and it's a study of Ikigai. And what we're saying out there, team, if you couldn't see us on YouTube, it's Ikigai's Ikigai. It's a beautiful cover of the book. Thank you for the books. And by the way, I love The Untethered Soul and The Alchemist. The Untethered Soul has had a profound impact on my life. So I'm glad that we can share that with the audience. About shifting gears to music. Is there a song or a genre, an artist, or something that really just inspires you and just kind of gets you going?
I love that. I don't think I've ever been asked that question. That's really cool. I'm a huge Eminem fan, and if no one's ever seen the movie 8 Mile, it's basically a very close to what his life was. And of course, the famous song "Lose Yourself" is one that is absolutely a massive one. There's a song also that is not as well known at all, and it's called 8 Mile. It's actually the name of the movie. And I'm just going to highlight, I love lyrics. And here's a lyric, and I'm getting goosebumps before I even say it. Maybe your audience can relate to this. One of the lines he has in the song is, "I keep running from something I never wanted so bad." And he's running away from this dream because he's scared of failure. He's scared of the judgment he's going to get. He's scared of how his family's going to look at him. His friends are going to look at him. And he's running from it whenever he really wants to run towards it. So I think the guy's a genius with his words. Clearly there's some intense language there, but I'm a huge Eminem fan because of his story of just came up from nothing, poor, changed schools 12 times, got into the wrong crowd, and then obsessed about something and found his gift and went all in on it. So it's almost like the Alchemist version of a real human being. And I love his music. So yeah, I'm a big Eminem fan.
Well, that's a very articulate way of putting it. So I appreciate this. I love the lyric. I keep running from something I always wanted so bad. Is that what, I keep running from something I always wanted so bad?
I keep running from something I never wanted so bad. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And man, just the idea, I think so many people do that too. They know what they might need to do to get what they want, that they still don't do it out of that, maybe the fear of failure. So I love the lyric. It's another good journal thought. Of team out there listening. Is there something you're running from right now, or where do you find yourself taking actions that are contradictory, to the direction you want to be going, and why you're running from that? So I love what you gifted us there. Let's go to the last question, Matt. And this is the last question. You get the last word. You're on the Eternal Optimist podcast. What might Eternal Optimist mean to you?
I have to say, I love the name of your podcast. And I think this is because to me, I was thinking about this before we hopped on. I was thinking about the name of the podcast and I thought, what's the opposite of that? Like the eternal pessimist. And to me, why even go down that road of thinking about being a pessimist? And there's plenty of studies showing that health-wise, it's not good for your goals, dreams, etc. It's not good. And I'll just throw this one out there. I think you news, you lose. So watching the news, I think, is a perfect recipe to become a pessimist and not go out and reach your goals. It is almost all bad things going on in the world. So I think about the name of your podcast, and it's like, why not take that stance and think that everything is going to be okay and the future is always better? And I love when you get to the top of one mountain, celebrate. Of course, I need to get better at that, celebrating the success, but then what's the next mountain? And why not think if you're 80 that year 81 is going to be the best year of your life? Because many people have proven that it's possible. And if you're 63, why not think 64 is your year? That's the best year of your life. So to me, when I was thinking about the name of the podcast, I just thought, why would we ever believe in the opposite when we know what that road leads to? And maybe it's easier to be the pessimist. But to me, having the courage to be the optimist and being the one in the room that's saying, no, like we can hit these goals by the end of the year. We can achieve this in 3 years. We can do that in 5 years. I want to surround myself with people like that. The Army determines apex. I want people like you, Matt, in my Army that are the eternal optimist.